Hey everyone, the reason Jim looks like a massive geek right now is because we are doing a promo here. We're going to announce the holiday schedule for the SBR videos, the Loshak in the Bag show. Jimmy the Bag, our last show is going to be on Tuesday the 19th before the break. Then you get a whole week off, Jimmy the Bag, and then it will pick up again on Wednesday the 27th, but only the 6 p.m. shows. And then on January 3rd, 2 shows a day will start. Wednesday, January 3rd is where everything starts again, Jim. You gonna be ready to go then?
So ready to go.
You think the break will help you or hurt you?
I think it will hurt me.
Yeah, exactly. Just like in sports betting, people who are hot sometimes get hurt by big breaks. And we're also going to do bowl specials over that week when there will be no Loshak in the Bag shows from Wednesday the 20th through January the 2nd, Tuesday the 2nd. We will be doing bowl specials at 12 o'clock Eastern time with myself, Big Man, and Drew, and we're going to be previewing all the bowls for that day. So that's the holiday schedule at SBR Videos for the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock Eastern time slot.
Okay, we live now? All right, hi everyone, welcome to SBR Sports Picks. My name is Peter Loshak. This is the bowl special videos for December 22nd that Big Man on Campus and Drew Martin and I are going to be doing all throughout bowl season. We've covered 2 bowls so far, and overall been quite successful, boys. Let's keep it going. Let's be intense. Let's make sure that we're on the right side more often than not. So far this year in these bowl specials, Drew Martin 2-0. Big Man on Campus, 2-0, and myself, 1-1. That's okay. A few more winners, and that horrible pick on SMU that I had early on in the year will be long gone, long in the rearview mirror. Yesterday, we nailed it. Drew Martin, of course, had the under, covered easily. Big Man on Campus and I both had Temple minus the points, covered easily. And the UAB Ohio Bowl that goes off in about 30 minutes, we previewed yesterday. So our picks were in yesterday's show, and of course in that one both Big Man and Drew Martin liked UAB at +7, and now +7 is not available. It's 6.5 or 6 market wide, and my pick on that one was the under at 59, and that is long gone. That is now down to 55, 55.5, or 56. You guys have any last second thoughts on the 12:30 bowl coming up here? UAB and Ohio feel just exactly the same as you did yesterday. Drew Martin, you feeling just as good about UAB?
Yeah, nothing really to add to it. I guess I would just say go back and watch yesterday's show. But yeah, I like the Blazers plus the points. You gave +7. The first comment here, though, is from D. Patrick that says Ohio will destroy UAB. Big Man, you took UAB as well at +7. It's now 6 or 6.5. You still feel as confident as you did yesterday, or does D. Patrick's first comment of the day in the live chat saying Ohio will destroy UAB make you a little nervous?
No, and actually, if it was anyone else, I'd actually take what he says with a grain of salt. But him and I don't normally ever agree on anything. So no, I do not agree with that. He might be right, but am I a little concerned at this point? No. I think there's a concern, though. AJ Willett, who was reported to be out for this game, looks like he's probable. So yeah, that's a 1,000-yard rusher that Ohio's going to have. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. But getting a solid 7, I'm pretty confident. I think this game will come down to the wire. D. Patrick might be right, but I'll depend on my capping here and hope I'm on the right side. I'm fine with the play. I like it a lot.
Okay, and again, the way we're doing this is, of course, the shows are at 12 o'clock Eastern time, so any day there's a bowl with a bowl that starts at 12, 12:30, or 1, we'll be giving our in-depth previews and our official picks on that bowl in the show the day before, and that is, of course, today, while we are also going to be covering the Texas Tech and South Florida Bowl that goes at 12 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow on Saturday, giving our official picks today. And once again, I'm on the under 59, which now just dropped to 54.5 at Pinnacle. Holy shit. And Big Man and Drew both like UAB +7, which is now down to 6.5 or 6. All right, let's get into the first bowl of the day today that we're going to cover, Central Michigan and Wyoming in the Idaho Potato Bowl. Now, some of these bowls I bet and I like. I said yesterday that I definitely bet the under 59 in Ohio UAB, and I did not bet the SMU pick that I gave. That was horrible. I'll give a pick on this bowl anyway, the Central Michigan-Wyoming Bowl, although I can tell you right now, I'm almost definitely not going to be betting this one, which is not the case with the South Florida-Texas Tech game, which we'll get to in a second. I did make a bet on that one, and I am definitely liking my pick on that bowl. Central Michigan, Wyoming, a very interesting matchup here, right? Both teams, strong on defense. And Wyoming, of course, both teams have better than normal quarterbacks. Wyoming, of course, has Josh Allen. That's a big story here. Projected NFL pick who had a little bit of a down year this year relative to what his expectations were. Although, playing with Wyoming, that's likely to happen and not necessarily reflective of his likely success or lack thereof in the NFL. But he did have a little bit of a down year. And then, of course, when he was injured in Wyoming's last 2 games of the regular season, we saw what happened. They completely fell off the table, couldn't score, lost ATS by a mile. Now he's going to be back for this bowl. And the reports are that, he's feeling close to 100%. He says that he's able to do most of what he wants to do, still feeling a little bit of pain in some throws, other throws not feeling any pain. So take that for what it's worth. Maybe there's no way we can know for sure what exact condition he is, but he is going to be playing. That's why the line has moved a little bit. It's now up to Wyoming -3. And on the other side, Central Michigan has a great quarterback. They had some big injuries offensively in the beginning of the year that sort of hamstrung them. And then when they got healthier offensively at the end of the year, they started to play a lot better. They started to get covers, and they started to put up a lot more points. So this is a tough one, and of course, both teams have a lot of strength on defense. Central Michigan in particular, and Wyoming maybe not necessarily team defense, but they certainly have some individual parts on defense that are very impressive. So this is a tough one. I still don't know what I'm going to give as my official pick. I guess as we sit here right now, before I hear what you guys have to say, I guess I'd be leaning Central Michigan getting 3, thinking that if it goes down to the wire, it'll be nice to have a little cushion, and why not? I'm very interested to hear what Drew Martin has to say about this one. How do you analyze this game, Drew Martin? Right now it's Wyoming -3. Total is 45 or 45.5.
Pete, hopefully I can convince you on the other side. We got the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, and if you remember last year, this was arguably the best bowl game of the season. It was Idaho versus Colorado State, over 100 points scored on the blue turf. This is where Boise State plays their home games in Albertson Stadium. Looks like about 30 degrees, cloudy. Josh Allen, like you hit on, Pete. I saw a video on Twitter. He was bowling. He looked actually pretty healthy. So going into this game, it's kind of a volatile handicap anytime you start talking the bowl games. But this one in particular, I think that it can go a lot of different ways, kind of a blowout one way or the other. When you look at Central Michigan on a 5-0 straight up and ATS run to end the year. But when you take it into context, in the MAC, when you start talking the bottom level teams, you got to add in Kent State and Ball State in that 5-0. So really that kind of makes me bring it down to a 3-0. Both of those teams really suck. As far as coaching advantage, I don't think there is many coaches better than Craig Boyle. If you remember him for Wyoming, he came from North Dakota State, kind of building that program up. I love his resume, his pedigree coming up. So I give him the advantage coaching wise. And the quarterback advantage. I know the lefty for Central Michigan, he is pretty good, a high recruit, went to Michigan before going to Central Michigan. I still think Josh Allen's the better option there. I know Wyoming lost to San Jose State in the last game of the season, but I just feel going into this game, if you can still grab the 3, I think Wyoming is the stronger side. Kind of not confident here, Pete, but I will go on record with the Cowboys minus the 3.
All right. Well, you might be able to convince me one way or another about changing my pick here, but I'm almost definitely locked into not making a bet on this game one way or the other. It's certainly an interesting game. I'll be interested to see how it all turns out, but I don't know if I'm going to bet this one at all. I don't think I will. Big man on campus, of course, Central Michigan has lost 3 bowls in a row last year. They got blown out, and supposedly the players are kind of upset about that, especially on defense. They're looking to have a better performance here. And again, Wyoming, they have not that their offense in general is what you would expect from Wyoming, except then you throw Josh Allen in there into the middle of it, so you have kind of a mediocre subpar offense overall, and then a Carson Wentz style NFL prospect at quarterback. Hard to get a read on how that offense is likely to do against a defense like Central Michigan, which has been good this year, especially against the pass. What's your take on this game, big man on campus?
Yeah, I actually really like Central Michigan in this game, and getting the 3 is huge. I mean, Josh Allen, I have to wonder, why is he playing in this game? I don't really understand the thought process here if I'm Josh Allen. I mean, you're already injured. You're a top 10 pick. Why on earth are you playing in this game? I don't understand that thought process, but that's another talk to have. Peter, I actually have some interesting things I want to bring up about the Potato Bowl. It's not a game you would consider a place in Boise. You wouldn't consider that a hard-hitting, like really high-level vacation spot. But I've chatted with a player from Maryland. He played with Maryland several years ago. He was a cornerback for that team. And he mentioned to me, I asked him, What was a bowl place that your team had a lot of trouble at? He went to a couple different ones. He mentioned Boise as one of them. It's a fairly interesting nightlife there. It's pretty wild from what I've heard. It's not one that I would think would be. It'll be interesting to see how these teams approach this. It is a vacation of some sort, but both these teams are used to the weather. They're used to the conditions. I just think with Central Michigan, Shane Morris has looked good all year for the most part. They have a solid run game, and their defense has improved considerably. I think at the end of the day, Wyoming's just not very good on offense. They have a solid defense, but Josh Allen's lost a ton of weapons. He's only completing 56% of his passes. And what happens in this game if he gets driven into the ground? I'm going to guess he's not going to want to risk his future on the Idaho Potato Bowl. For me, Central Michigan's just a team that I depend on a little bit more, and I think they have the better team, frankly. I don't think Wyoming's that good.
Yeah. Is it possible that the people who told you that there's a hopping nightlife in Boise were just being sarcastic and you didn't pick up on it? That's what I'm thinking right there, big man. No? You're pretty good at picking up on sarcasm in general?
Yeah, I am. And the source that was telling me this was a starting quarterback on that football team.
Right.
I actually asked him specifically. I said, was there a bowl place that you went that, was kind of difficult? He said, no, that Boise was an interesting place, a lot of nightlife, kind of wild, and they had some suspensions and that sort of thing. He may even come on the chat and say that himself. He said that to me several times.
That's awesome. I love getting inside information from the actual players like that. That stuff I think is invaluable. All right, Drew Martin, what do you think about? I've made the decision. There's no way in hell I'm betting this one, but I am going to give a pick on it because I decided I will go with you guys and give a pick on every game. Drew Martin, what do you think about Big Man's analysis there? I'd have to say that as of right now, I'm slightly leaning towards Big Man on campus is agreeing with him a little bit more, just because I feel like as a team, Central Michigan is a little bit better, and obviously Wyoming gets the big edge at quarterback, but not a massive edge. And I guess I'm just looking at Central Michigan as a team that underachieved a little bit and is much more like what they were at the end of the year when they got more healthy. What's your take on some of those points that Big Man just said, Drew?
No, I think he brings up some great points, and you got to respect him. I still go back to what I said before. I'm kind of not confident about it. We got to put out a pick on all of these games, or that's the way we're going about it. What Big Man was saying about a kind of an interesting bowl venue here, I will bring up the fact what just in middle of October, Wyoming did play at Boise State, so they have played here this year. They know the surroundings, so playing in the conference with the bowl games, that could help them. I guess it could hurt them if the nightlife is that wild. They already know the bars and the clubs to go to, so it might be worth checking out Twitter to see if these kids are really going back to the hotel room at night. But so just keep that in mind. But yeah, a low wager, a minimum wager on the Wyoming Cowboys is what I'm doing.
Okay, and actually, there's a comment here that my main note for this one is it was reminded of me by one of these comments. Here we go. Justin Searcy, a comment. Problem. ... Wyoming has no O-line, and that was one of my starred factors here. Wyoming is definitely thin in the trenches. They've had injury issues on their offensive line, all season long, and this time they're going to be without starting guard Caden Jackson. Jace Webb did not make the trip. Also, he's another offensive lineman. He had a concussion, and then a guy named Brinkley Jolly is out with a torn pec. And in general, Wyoming is just thin, and if they get hit with a few more injuries during the game, that's going to be a big negative for them. And even if they don't, feels like Central Michigan will have the edge in the trenches, so that might mitigate some of the danger of the power that Josh Allen will have in his arm. Do you consider that, Drew Martin? Is that a concern for you?
Yeah, as far as the O-line goes, yeah, absolutely. I don't think Central Michigan's necessarily a defensive front that absolutely gets after it. And in the Josh Allen thing, the shoulder, he actually looked to be getting healthier as the season went on there at the end. So in that bowling video that we saw, he looked to be moving around okay. So I wouldn't put too much into that. And Big Man, you bring up why is he playing? What about the argument, if he does have a good game, he could actually boost his draft value?
His stock, in my opinion, is set already. I don't think one game is going to set him apart. He hasn't had a good year to begin with, and he's still in the top 10. Drew, I actually disagree completely. I think the offensive line is a huge part of this game. Central Michigan is 28th in the country in sacks per game, over 2.5 a game. That is going to be an issue. And if they can get to the quarterback, you gotta look at this from the future. We see a lot of these kids sitting out of these games. If you're getting hit every other way, I can't imagine Josh Allen's going to risk his future over a bowl game.
Absolutely.
He'll be tough, but again, it's not something that I want to mess around with. And I also think Peter Loshek makes a great point here. Central Michigan is a group of kids where many of these kids are going to stay there their full 4 years. They have not won a bowl game in a long time, and Shane Morris has had a bit of a resurgence and a renaissance, if you will, in his career. I just look at the motivation here, the way they're playing. Wyoming's just a boring football team with not a lot of star power right now. Just the fact that Josh Allen's come back on a bum shoulder for some God knows reason, I don't know. Give me Central Michigan. I think they have to be the play in this game.
Yeah, if they can't protect Josh Allen, he's not going to risk, getting injured or banged up in this game. And if he has a bad game, he'll just throw that offensive line so quickly under the bus. He'll be like, it wasn't me, it was their fault. It was the offensive line's fault. The running backs are always giving credit for their big years to the offensive line. Josh Allen's going to be like, no, it was all their fault. And he'll probably be right,
Yeah,
is he that type of guy?
Right. Who? I don't know if he'll come out and say it publicly, but I think the writing will be on the wall if he's getting hit. I mean, and Drew, the point has been brought up. They're without 2 or 3 different linemen. I have to imagine they're pretty scarce at those positions. It's a tough one. Bowles a great coach, but they lost a lot of talent from last year. And luckily, this is a team, guys. We have to remember this team lost to San Jose State. I mean, I know Allen didn't play, but you got to pull up the bootstraps at some point and say, look, I mean, we're better than San Jose State is. That's concerning. Josh Allen, I don't think in a bad year is going to change that a ton.
Yeah, and Drew, you have to see that kind of guy. I mean, I'm sure if you ran into him at a bar, he'd buy you a beer. But when there's millions of dollars on the line, yes, he's that kind of guy. We can assume that he is. No, go ahead, Drew.
No, I was just going to say, guys, we're concentrating on the Wyoming offense a lot, and I agree with your guys' points. They are banged up on O-line. They have lost a lot of talent. But we got to remember, they're going up against a MAC team in Central Michigan. It's kind of, you can see in the betting markets, it's kind of fade MAC conferences going on. And also look on the other side of the ball. The Wyoming Cowboys, they're a team that held Fresno State to 13 points. They also held Colorado State to 13 points. So on the defensively, it's not a bad squad.
Oh, no, it's great. They're one of the best in the conference, and they actually have on defense some guys who are going to be in the NFL as well. That's an absolutely a good point. So before we get to our official final pick, some people have been asking about the total. Drew, you've had a good read on this one. Obviously at first glance, because of all the things that we've been discussing here, you might want to lean under, but it is a low total. And again, you do have Josh Allen, a quarterback, and a Central Michigan team that was a little bit better offensively as they got healthier. Very low total here, 45, and sometimes you want to expect the unexpected in bowl games like these. You have any sense on the total, Drew Martin, or is it going to be a total pass for you?
I got to jump on it. It would be a total pass for me, Pete. I don't have an opinion.
Mm-hmm. C-Mac says lots of running need under 2. Gary Long says Josh is overrated. All right, let's get to our official picks here. I probably would have a lean to the under just because I don't think we're going to see an unexpected game plan from either of these teams. But 45 and a half is just a little bit too low for me to take a shot with. So I'll make an official pick here on Central Michigan. It's +3 market wide, and most places do have -110, including Pinnacle, slightly shaded towards Central Michigan. So I will take Central Michigan +3, -110 as my official pick on this one. Big man, I assume that's your pick as well?
Yep, I agree with you totally. Central Michigan +3.
And nothing on the total for you?
No, I do think it'll be a fairly boring and drabby game. But listen, you're really playing with fire. I'm going to say, if you are taking Wyoming, don't be the guy whining on Twitter because you took Wyoming and Josh Allen's out of the game. You could very well be in the same situation as last night with Florida International University. Drew, I'm not sure if you know this, pal, but you have to score points to win the game. And Wyoming is a very good defense, but so is Central Michigan.
Yeah. All right, Drew, if you want to take Wyoming here, by all means do. Obviously, you're 2-0 so far in bowl season, but if it loses and Josh Allen goes out, I want to be on Twitter seeing you whining and bitching and complaining. Where took Michigan? What happened with Josh Allen? Yeah. No. No whining on Twitter, Drew Martin, okay?
Pete, that's what Twitter's for, man. You just follow me and I'll whine all I want.
Good point. Good point.
Actually,
good point.
Nice rebuttal. Actually, that's true. Actually, I do like to see people whine on Twitter when they make a bad call. That's what Twitter's for. It's not taking responsibility, throwing whoever you can under the bus. All right, I'm on Central Michigan. Drew, Big Man's on Central Michigan. Drew Martin, have we swayed you? Or are you going to stick with your Wyoming play?
No, man. I'm standing strong. I'm going with the Cowboys.
Okay, Baseball Bob says, Drew, switch the pick. All right, but Drew Martin is going to take Wyoming, and the best line there is at Pinnacle, -3, -102. And interestingly, a lot of the commenters on the total are saying that they like the over. CMAC likes the over. Eric Nisbet says points will be scored. I can certainly see that. That's an interesting opinion there. Obviously, both offenses are capable. But all right, so I'm on Central Michigan +3, -110. Big Man on campus on Central Michigan +3, -110. And Drew Martin is on Wyoming -3, -102. Great breakdown and analysis, guys. Now let's move on to the Birmingham Bowl, which goes at 12 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, Saturday, December 23rd. And this one is not like the Central Michigan-Wyoming Bowl. I did bet this one. Obviously, with Texas Tech against South Florida. Charlie Strong, of course, in his first year at South Florida, so he does know how to coach against game plan for a Big 12 teams like Texas Tech. Texas Tech is pretty much the same deal as what we've seen in years past. A little bit better defensively, but still very, very vulnerable defensively. And I'm just not totally sure why this line was so low. And I did bet South Florida at -3. Just feels like South Florida is going to have a clear edge on defense, probably even an edge on offense. And I would take South Florida here all day long at -3. Let's start again with you, Drew Martin. Is my basic, quick 10-second analysis of this line being too low off? Do you think that the line makes sense, or is South Florida clearly being undervalued here?
I believe they're being undervalued, and I'll throw another tidbit in there, Pete. This is in Birmingham. You got to watch the weather. It actually looks like 16-mile-an-hour winds plus some rain at kickoff, which I think helps the South Florida side.
Sure.
So, more athletic ability and more of a percentage of their offensive plays being on the ground. So I think that helps USF from a side perspective as well, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just not a believer. And also, Texas Tech faded down the year as they often do. And if you look at this bowl from a motivational perspective, is South Florida going to come in here and not really care about this one? Not at all. Quite the contrary. Obviously, it's Charlie Strong's first year. It's an up year for the program. I think they want to wind it up, close off the year with a big, nice win in a bowl game. South Florida -3 has got to be the side here. A Big Man on campus. Any reason why it wouldn't be? Or is that how you're thinking as well?
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Peter. I think this is a pretty straightforward decision. I mean, South Florida's all year been very good offensively, as we know. One of the better quarterbacks in the country, especially running the football. And defensively, they're really good. I mean, all year against the run, they've been really shut down. The concern I have for South Florida here is, I mean, again, how good are they against the pass? I mean, they're not tested a ton. Particularly lately, even against Navy, and Central Florida is more of a run-first kind of team. I'm concerned. I mean, can they stop this Texas Tech pass offense? Because when Nick Shimanek gets going, he is pretty good, but there's no way in God's green earth I'm betting on Cliff Kingsbury. I've made my comments on him before. I think he's one of the worst coaches in the country. And the defensive line for South Florida is very good. There's a concern for me with that Texas Tech offensive line, with their defense. Bottom line, you got a senior in Quentin Flowers against a questionable defense in Texas Tech, who, let's be real, if not for a collapse by Texas, they're not in a bowl game. So, I'm going to lay the number here. I think this is like a 38-28 type of game. I think it'll be a double-digit victory or so for the South Florida Bulls. This is a good way to end the season on a high note. Wasn't the season I think they envisioned maybe, but still a very good season, and I think they'll end it with a big-time win here. This is pretty straightforward to me.
And you're asking, can they stop Texas Tech's passing game? Well, you got a coach who's supposedly a defensive guru who has experience planning, game planning for Big 12 offenses and specifically for Texas Tech, and you're giving them a whole bunch of weeks of time to prepare. So my answer to that question is probably yes,
Yeah, I hear you. Again, they have faced, I don't know if they faced an offense quite like this. The problem with Texas Tech is they're so one-dimensional. I mean, they're at some point, they can't run the ball. They're very limited on that side of the football. they're just a better team. I mean, this is not. Plus, again, the coaching here, South Florida is a much better coach to me. You mentioned the time to prepare. He needs to be prepared for this game. He will be. I agree with you.
Yeah. All right. So it sounds like we're all going to be on South Florida. And let's quickly talk about the total because, of course, two big offensive teams, although both were under trenders on the year because the totals were just too high. We did see South Florida, though, play some games in the stratosphere at times against teams like Texas Tech. Their game against Central Florida, of course, went way over and went into the stratosphere. Drew, you mentioned some weather issues that might inhibit scoring a little bit here. If weather wasn't a consideration, would you be thinking about taking a shot with the over at 66, Drew?
Yeah, and actually, Pete, I mean, I mentioned that, but it's always tough to handicap the weather, especially in the South. It can move fast, so this is something you're probably going to want to watch and check early tomorrow morning. But actually, Pete, we've brought up some things about the South Florida defense, and they are a top 30 national defense, like as far as the rankings go. And when you think about AAC offenses, you usually think they're pretty good. You know, we got Tulsa, Houston, usually lighting it up. Although this year, I think the offenses in that conference have kind of taken a step back, and they didn't play Memphis. The UCF offense, which is obviously it's one of the best in the nation, they got torched by. We remember it just in the last game. The war on I-4. So I kind of pumped the brakes on how good this USF defense really is. So I actually lean towards the over a little bit more than the USF side, just because of the kind of time away here. Yeah, I really do. So I would actually make my pick not on USF. I would actually more go on the over of 65.5.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the weather, and from what I saw, I didn't look into too in depth, but I just saw, some low teens winds, which, can be a big deal, but not really. And then I saw light rain. So I sort of wrote off weather as a major factor in this game. That might be a mistake. Did you see something more intense than that, Drew?
No, I saw the same thing. So I just wanted to throw it out there to be, it could be something to watch.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. So Drew Martin, then you actually, so you like the over, and you like the over a little bit more than South Florida. You think there is a chance that Texas Tech could win this game? I guess because you just think that South Florida won't be able to stop Texas Tech's offense at all.
Exactly. I mean, if I had to bet it from a side perspective, I would go with the Bulls. But, Texas Tech defensively is banged up on defense. And USF, their defense, I'm really not convinced that they're all that good. They gave up over 30 points to ECU. They gave up, they got absolutely torched by UCF. I'm not saying Texas Tech's offense is UCF's, but you give that offense this much time to prepare, there's going to be things that USF hasn't seen on film. A loose atmosphere in a, kind of mid-bowl game level, we see that it can kind of get out of hand with two offenses that really want to push the tempo and go more and try to score. So I could look for that atmosphere to kind of get out of hand and both defenses not keep up. So I like the over 65.5.
Yeah, and yet both teams were under trenders on the year as far as their ATS results are concerned. Of course, in these bowl games, if you want to, you can give a bet on the side and the total. You don't have to restrict it to just one play. You can play the side and the total. I was thinking about giving the over here, but I was just going to scratch my head about it a little bit more and listen to what you guys had to say. Again, it seems like it has overwritten all over it, but again, both teams were strong under trenders on the year, and I guess Drew, you would just chalk that up, at least for South Florida, to the fact that South Florida didn't play tough offenses all year long.
Yeah, I think the offense, pretty much conference-wide in the AAC, was down. I don't think a lot of the offenses aren't what we've seen in the past. And also, Pete, when we say under trenders by this time in the year, a lot of that's built into the market, I would say. Texas Tech versus USF, it's kind of surprising not to see this 70-plus total.
Yes.
So we're seeing it in the mid-60s. There might be value there.
Exactly. All right, big man on campus. I'm thinking about maybe doubling up on this one, taking South Florida and the over. You have anything to say about the over, big man on campus?
I got to tell you, I think South Florida, their schedule is incredibly weak. I mean, you look at early on, San Jose, Stony Brook, Illinois, just dreadful offense. And I think Drew makes very good points. Their defensive line's good, but I have some question marks about their secondary, their linebackers. Have they seen an offense quite like this? You're going to have a really solid passing defense for 4 quarters to keep Texas Tech off the board. And when you look at some of the tempo analytics for this game, both these teams, 10th and 21st as far as plays per minute. Their average drive time is also very low, which is good. They're quick. A lot of quick play offenses here with these two teams. I agree with Drew wholeheartedly. I'm going to give 2 plays in this game. I'm going to take South Florida, and I'm going to take the over as well. I thought this game would be, like Drew said, more towards 69, 70, maybe 71. The only thing that might, sway this one would be the weather, but for me, it's going to have to be really heavy winds. And they didn't play Memphis, South Florida. Name me an offense they played on this schedule, maybe other than Eastern Carolina, that's any good. I mean, all these offenses are run first, limited passing games. They could be masked a little bit. They kind of remind me of the Eagles, kind of in a way. Eagles haven't played many high-profile passing offenses. All their offenses they played have been with limited quarterback play, things like that. South Florida is a very similar profile.
All right, so I'm looking at the comments. Pretty much everyone agreeing with either South Florida or the over. Not seeing anyone leaning under except for Teddy B, who says bowl games have been going under, which is true. Small sample size, but they have been going a little bit surprisingly under. And although Drew Martin, not surprisingly, Drew Martin was on both of the unders. Those were his two winners so far this year. And all right, so let's make our final picks. I will go with the big man on campus. I'm going to take South Florida. Right now, it's -3, -105 at the Greek. That is the best line we can get. And I will also take the over, which is 65.5, 66, or 66.5. So I will take, it is a split line market-wide. This is why line shopping is so important. I'll take the over 65.5, -107. That's at Pinnacle. And big man on campus, you're on both of those as well?
Yeah, and keep in mind to the guy that said about a lot of unders, they're 5-5 to the under. So I mean, there's been 5 overs, 5 unders. So remember, there were bowl games Saturday, 5-2 to the over. It's just the last couple nights have been pretty poor for over bettors. But yes, I agree. South Florida and the over for me. I'm agreeing with you on that, Peter.
Okay, that's -3, -105 at the Greek, and over 65.5, -107. And Drew, your official pick on this one is going to be just the over?
Yeah, over 65.5 at Bookmaker.
Over 65.5, and we'll give you the Pinnacle line, which is -107. Bookmaker has 110. We'll give you the Pinnacle line at -107. And your lean would be to South Florida, but it's not strong enough for you to want to make it an official pick, as Big Man and I are doing.
Correct, and thank you for giving me that penny shop right there, Pete.
Yeah, sure, you're right. Yeah, no, Drew Martin, yes, absolutely. I'm very strict about the lines that we use, but we also always give every handicapper with an opinion and an official pick the absolute best line out of the books that we use, which comprises a selection of books that establish a market. All right, so Drew Martin agreeing with Big Man and I on South Florida on a lean, but not strong enough on a pick. And all three of us are going to be going on the over 65.5. Is that good news or bad news? I think it's good news, but we've seen this before when 3 esteemed handicappers all agree on a play and the play loses by a mile. But I don't think that's going to happen here. Drew Martin, of course, 2-0 so far in these shows. Big Man on campus, of course, 2-0 so far in these shows, and I am 1-1, which is okay. Just 2 picks, 1-1. I think I'll be positive very, very soon. That's it for today. We have covered the 2 bowls we're going to get to. We will be back tomorrow morning, where we will cover the Army San Diego State Bowl and the Appalachian State Toledo Bowl. Those are the bowls that go on Saturday. Again, that will be tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern. Big Man on campus, Drew Martin, and all the commenters in the chat box. Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern time.
Thank you.